Hey everyone. We're going to jump in right away with a lot of the work that we've been doing on the back end and getting a blog up and running. So the last video we troubleshooted a lot. We got a lot done, a lot through the a lot of the trouble that we were facing. We were able to just figure out really easily. So I'm really happy with how things are coming along right now, and we have a long way to go. Because what we have right now is we have a blog that's up and running in the back end, so like we can see that we have information, but we don't have anything on the front end. And so if I go over here, I already spun up my local host, but if I go to blog, I have just hello. That's not really helpful. But even beyond that, if I have a blog post named hello, we're not going to see anything because that slug does not exist. In fact, no slug exists. So we're going to go to blog, go to slug, and it's all just all this commented out stuff. And so that needs to change. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started on that. So I do have some of this from an old project that we're going to work with. And we're going to start down here with our, this should be blog. So I'm just going to take all of this commented out code, which is a lot of commented out code. We're going to simplify a lot of this. So let's go ahead and uncomment that. And honestly, I don't know why I'm doing it this way. What we should just do, start from scratch. So we have a little bit of an example already from our homepage. So if we come up here, we know some of the things that we're going to need. And actually, there is a couple pieces of code that I want to keep in here. So first is this query message, because this is from Payload. I want to make sure that I can keep this because it's going to really help us with caching down the line. So we're going to have query blog. We'll reinstate that here in a second. Result. So getPayload is now the preferred way of doing this. So I will make sure that we have that in there, and then we should have, I think it's posts. All right, so a couple things back up to the top, because we do have some of these. We'll keep our classes. We're going to take out all of these schema, because that's not important right now. We'll keep link, because we'll probably need it. We'll get rid of this. We'll keep metadata, because we'll eventually need it. We'll need getPayload and where. We need the config promise. I don't know why this, duplicate identifier. So I must have imported that somewhere else. We're going to leave it up there though. Config, we'll leave metadata for now. We don't need breadcrumbs. We don't need any of these containers. We don't need dates. I'm going to leave the date and I'll show you why here in a second. Get rid of those. Card container, we won't need. Don't need any of these. We'll keep serialized lexical because we have content. Don't need anything for nav. Let's keep the date going. Don't need that. Format date we want to keep because I have my own utility function for that. Don't need anything here. Don't need that. We need cache, so we'll leave that in. We need draft mode. We'll leave global setting because we'll eventually need it. And then this should, I believe, just be this now. Get cached global we'll leave, and then redirects we'll leave as well. So now we can delete our generate static params because we'll want to create that ourselves when we get there. We're going to leave this type of props because we're going to need it in a second anyway. I'll explain it when we get there. We'll need our global settings, I think. Did I get rid of the... No, I think we brought this into a function. So we're going to get rid of that. And then we have our generate metadata, which we will also get rid of all of that. So really the only thing I wanted to keep was all the way down here with our... This is all the way down here. I don't need that. So we have is enabled. Figure that out in a second. Because I think this is coming from something else. What is cache? Cache is not what we need. I'll figure that out later. We'll just comment this out. So we don't really need draft mode, so we're just going to comment it out for now. All right, so we'll start here. What this is doing is we are going to query our blog and wrap it in cache. So this will allow us to make sure that we are keeping things fresh. So if we have a piece of content that doesn't need to be updated, this here will keep the blog in the cache. And so while it's in the cache, nothing will happen to it. I'm not going to set a revalidate time because we're going to use on-demand revalidation for this. And so that's done by setting a hook on the backend. So we'll do that later, or we'll confirm that it's done in our payload backend in a little bit. But for now, what this is just going to do is it's going to query our post, which I just put in here, and it's going to query the blog for us on the front end. And that's really about it. We'll wrap it in cache later on, but now we can get rid of all of this junk that I had from a previous project, and we're going to export default function blog. So export default function. We will take the params, but we're going to call this blog. And so now we're then going to use our const blog is equal to query blog, and we'll do our params. And so before we do that, we're actually going to log what our params are doing. So I'm just going to hit log and then do params. So when I do this and refresh, we should be able to see in our log here that we have this long list of params. And what we want is the slug. So I know that this is what we're looking for, but you can see here that we do have a blank slate now when I type in hello instead of a warning. That's because we have something coming back to the front end and communicating between the front end and the back end. So we're going to query the params.slug. And since this blog does not actually exist, I got to look at this for here real quick, because this does not equal a where. So if I do slug, which will then be equals here, I have a better idea. So I try to get a little fancy over here, but what we'll end up doing instead is just setting where slug. Slug equals slug. Did that wrong again. There we go. So now it'll be expecting a string instead, or at least it should be. I don't know why it's not. But then we're just going to return, well, let's log blog instead, and we'll see what's going on here when it hits the log as well. So first we need to see what our blogs are called. So I'm going to go to our localhost admin, log in with our PayloadCMS demo account, do posts, and so we have all of these as slugs. So we'll do just test 3 to try it out. So nothing shows up, but we do see here in our console eventually we're logging our blog, which we see just an error. So here we need to set this to be an async function, and this needs to await query blog. So that's first. Now, why is this still an error? So we see that the document, I guess, object is there, but since we're not getting the correct slug, maybe I need to set this to be slug. So maybe I need to set this back to be slug. And see here, this is where I need that old project, how we did this before. So if I do this, nothing will happen. Oh no, because I see all of our docs instead, but only one is returned because I set a limit to 1 here. So what this result is doing is it's searching all of my posts where the slug, whatever I need that query to be, and then a limit of 1 is being returned with a depth of 1. So it's only hydrating, for lack of a better word, 1 level of relationship. And then override access means that I'm able to access what I need to without any problems. So yeah, I didn't think that was going to be a problem. Okay, const blog. So here we're just going to set const slug to be params dot slug, and then if we log slug, make sure that we're getting what we think we're getting. So we see test3. So that means that we're getting an array back. Totally fine, but it does mean that we need to do params slug and set that to be the first index coming back. So we do see test3 right there. So I need to await params. It says use params.slug. Params should be awaited before using its property. Is that not what I'm doing? I'm getting something out of it. So here, oh, query blog, I need to await. No? What is, well, await has no effect there, so I get that. So then I need to do slug, but since this needs to be, its type of string is not assignable to parameter of type, slug where, I need this to be slug equals slug, which that is clearly wrong. Okay, that's something. There we go. All right, so this is kind of ugly, but that's all right. I could set that as a variable instead, so I could do something like const blog query is equal to, do slug equals slug 0, and then instead of all of that junk, put in the log query, and that should still work, where if I log our blog, and that way it's just not as ugly. Now here I still get an error on the route that says params.slug, which I'm not actually using. It says params should be awaited before using its properties. So here, let's go look at our other project real quick, or actually let's just look at our local history for this file. Because if we go back early enough, which shouldn't be too much earlier, I guess right here, if we come down to our beginning here, we have page equals params.slug. So I wonder actually why I'm having to do this like I am. Why is that there? Because I see right here that we have the same type props params slug. That's generate metadata. And here I see export default async function, params props, const page. So I think we're okay because this has worked before. All right, so let's move on. So now we have seen our project here. So we have our link. We have if it's featured, it's published. We have our created at and updated at. And here we can start returning some stuff. So now that we have our data, we can just set this to be article because we want to be semantic and our HTML, and this is going to be a blog article. And then just to get some stuff on the front end, we're going to set an H1 of our title. So here we can do, we'll do blog.docs0 title. And then we can start there. If I refresh, I see test3 as my title. And so say I want to include our date. So I'm just going to do a paragraph, and we're just going to set it to be blog.docs0. I should have a date field, but I don't for this blog. So what I'm going to do is just use updated at for now, and then come over here to test3 and add a date. There's going to be a couple things I need to add here. So let's add test description. We'll add a summary. This is some rich text, so I can test this as well. And we'll just add some formatting, just so we're able to see this as well. Oops. And then we'll leave the authors the same. There's no category. I don't want to include any of that. We'll just choose a regular live thumbnail with the date 15th. And then we have our link there. And then if I come over to SEO, I can auto-generate the title, the image, the description. I don't need to do anything with the canonical, because what should happen, that does not get added, but I will work on that later. So now we have a little bit of a fuller API. So if I hit save to refresh it, or I guess I can refresh this one. All right, so I see our date here, but then I also see a few more fields included here, which are mostly going to be in content. So let's do some destructuring here. First, I want to get our, let's set this blog to actually be our response. And we're going to set our blog to be response.docs0. And so now when I get rid of these, it shouldn't change anything. If I refresh, nothing breaks. And we come down here to our blog, and we want to return our content and our meta. And we'll set that to be equal to blog. And now we'll set a div, and we will take our content. That's not going to do anything, but I'm going to log our content so we're able to see what we're working with again. So a lot of this is just working down our list to see what we have available to us, and then structuring and restructuring to make sure we can see what we have available to us. So I see we have a description and a summary. So if we want to, we can add a summary. Import summary from, that should be good. I don't know if this is actually the right block, so we'll do summary block instead. And then here we should be able to do content.summary, which we cannot, which tells me that this is the wrong one. So if I do summary now, oops, summary, got an object. Content summary should be correct. So let's just try this out real quick and do just a paragraph tag. And we see our test description there and our summary. And so we'll set this to also, it says it's potentially undefined, so we can set that and then do content, whoops. Delete all that and do content.summary. And that should actually be able to get rid of this. So now if it exists, it can render our summary there. So now I would like to see why, though, our summary block didn't work. So I need to go and look and see what blocks we have. We come all the way down to our summary, which is looking for a few things, which is a header section, a summary, and is active. So is header section required? We're going to make it not required. And we're going to do header section. There we go. So then we should be able to come back here. And this is summary. So should be able to do summary. And then the summary field is equal to this, and get rid of all of that. So export default function summary can't be used as a JSX. Let's see what happens. So it errors out. Expected a string for built-in components or a class function for composite functions, but got object. So it's definitely sending a string. We saw that happening. If we click on the summary, okay, so there's the problem. So we need to come up here and import summary. And that's going to be from our app blocks summary. So it's a default, which then means, all right, so it's in. Now what is it missing? Property active is missing in type, so we'll just do active equals true. So there we go. That was a whole long way of doing nothing, but we do see that we have our test description there, and we can actually go in, and if there is no header section, we could do, if no header section, then do an H2, and we can just write summary. If I could type and let that take up some space there. Perfect. And if we wanted to edit that, we could, but let's take a look at our header section to see. Nope, so that's what it's supposed to look like. We are good to go. Oh, I can still do class name, classes, that summary header. Doing that, we have our summary in place.